It is that time of the week again, all you mentees. Time to go over all the upcoming collected editions coming out from Marvel this week. So, let's get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the folks in Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these trades. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on April 5th or 6th, with the exception of Conan. That was a book that came out last week, but since it was about the only trade paperback that came out, I figured let's do it this week. So we are going to be talking about 3 epic collections, a complete collection, some trades, some Mighty Marvel Masterworks, a lot of stuff in here for everybody. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll be talking about the Mighty Marvel Masterworks Thor. And before I do, always in the description of the video, I put the timestamps as to when you can look for the specific titles, in case you're only interested in 1 or 2, or in case you don't want any spoilers. And I mean any spoilers, and I stay away from spoilers unless I tell you ahead of time that I'm going to be talking about something insignificant and small. But anyway, let's get started with the Mighty Marvel Masterworks Thor Volume 2. So here we have the Mighty Marvel Masterworks Volume 2 of Thor. Now, of course, one thing I always like to point out is the differences in the spines and the differences in the back from the direct market to the book market. So in the direct market, of course, you're going to get the classic cover. The book market, you get the Michael Cho cover, the modern cover. But the backs are different. You actually get a volume 2 here of the Mighty Thor. Like this lets you know back here what volume you're on, because you don't really get that on the spine. You just get the title of the book, The Invasion of Asgard. Whereas here, you don't get a volume 2, but you get, this is volume 11 of the special limited printing collector's edition, featuring the classic cover art that is available exclusively at comic book shops. So this right here is for people that I guess are collectors and want to get everything. And this right here are for average readers that just want to share these particular stories with the next generation. Now, my kiddos, Miss Lydia and Adjectiveless Alicia, it's been a while since we've done a video, mainly because of the move and they've had school and stuff. But they want to do the next book, which is Daredevil. They want to talk about Daredevil Volume 1, and then we're going to move on to some Volume 2s. So look forward to that. But here we have Journey into Mystery 101 and 104, the A and C stories, and then 105 to 110. So that's what's collected in here. And both of the books are identical as far as the content. Both of them retailing for $15.99, and both of them have 208 pages. As far as the extras in the back, they do add some extras from time to time, like house ads or original art pieces back here. But we'll go more in depth in that when we do the family reviews. Alright, let's talk about the fun title of the bunch. This is Avengers, Tech on Avengers. So what I thought this was a follow-up to that giant-sized Gundam type of story that I reviewed a couple of months ago. But it's not. This is pretty much what if every Avenger got an Iron Man type of suit. This is written by Jim Zub, who is no stranger to the Avengers. And it is drawn by one of my favorite artists, Jeffrey Chamba Cruz, who's mainly drawn things like, I guess for Marvel he drew Venom, a couple of Venom books, and then for Udon Studios, of course, he's been doing Street Fighter. So this, I want to say it's not in continuity, but oh my gosh, this was so damn fun. The book retails for $17.99. It has 136 pages, and all it is this is what the Red Skull looks like. He's able to take away the powers of all these superheroes like Spider-Man and Captain America and Wolverine. So Iron Man decides, hey, I can make you guys cool costumes too, and we could be superheroes again, and that's exactly what this is. It's all out war against all these super villains with these armors right there. That, not to be taken itself seriously, it was a lot of fun. And like I said, Jim Zub is no stranger to writing these characters. He wrote Avengers before. So you get to see more than the main Avengers line show up in these particular armor. There's a classic take-on cover of Wolverine slashing away. It's a Mike Zeck cover from the annual of Captain America. So the artwork looks like this, I'm sure a lot of people are looking at this going, oh, that looks like anime. Well, yes. I mean, that's the type of art that you're going to find in an Udon Studio book. And the type of artwork that you were seeing when Marvel was testing the waters in the pages of Uncanny X-Men, in the pages of Emma Frost or Deadpool. I said Daredevil. Deadpool. You know, there were a lot of manga-inspired artists that would come over to Marvel and test these waters in the early aughts. Of course, a lot of them have to thank Joe Mad for paving the way for them. But yeah, this is the type of art you're going to be seeing in here. The covers are all intact. Look at that awesome Scream armor. Like I said, there's a lot of characters that show up through here. As far as the extras, we're going to be looking at some variants here. This is the Jeffrey Chamba Cruz variant to issue number 1. It's James Stocco, Peach Momoko. Peach Momoko has a variant for each issue, yeah. And it's pretty much showcases the characters in their armors. Black Panther's actually kind of, I like that. It's like a kitty cat. It's cute, like not like Voltron. But yeah, this was fun. KA-ZAR, Lord of the Savage Land. This completely took me by surprise. I had no idea what this book was. For some reason, I thought Peter David was the writer on this book, but it's not. It's actually Zach Thompson. Now, one thing I will say about this book is that in order to... how do I put this? In order to understand what's happening in here, you've had to have read the Empire story, at least the Captain America and the Avengers story, because it's a follow-up to that. Something happens in the pages of this book that affects this particular title. Now, if you don't want to know what happens, because it is a little bit of a spoiler, by all means, put me on mute and check out this beautiful artwork here by Germán Garcia and Alvaro Lopez. But if you don't care about spoilers, or if you've read that already, well, come on in. It does give you a quick recap as to what happened in that particular miniseries. But here we have, here's your creators right here, Zach Thompson, Germán Garcia, Matthias Lopez, and Alvaro Lopez working on several of the issues right here. So, all right, that cover kind of tells you what's going on. So, pretty much in the pages of Captain America and the Avengers, KA-ZAR dies. It was the fight against the Katati and to save the Savage Land. KA-ZAR dies, but he is resurrected, and when he is resurrected, he's more in tune with the Savage Land. He kind of becomes a god, and that's what we see here, for the Savage Land. He has new powers, he has new abilities, his body can change. So in here, it starts off with a nightmare that he's having, like a flashback nightmare. I love this opening scenes here. Like, harkens it's very specifically back to, like, the late 1800s, early 1900s, imperialist England. Kind of like in what you would see in, like, Tarzan, like those kind of stories. But this beautiful artwork with the colors is what stood out to me. And honestly, the story, I wasn't expecting this. This feels less like a KA-ZAR story and more like a Alan Moore Swamp Thing. Remember when I said he is more in tune with the Savage Land? So you can kind of, without spoilers, guess where I'm going with that. There's a lot of, narration towards the very beginning. He's talking to himself because you see that he's the protagonist. But the story moves on. It goes between him and Shauna and, of course, their child, Matthew. And you can't miss Zabu. Zabu's taking down dinosaurs. And there's a new evil in the Savage Land that is threatening to destroy the entire Savage Land or to change it. But yeah, KA-ZAR can now grow a tail. He can grow wings. He can fly. He can adapt. But like I said, it's taking effect on not just his body, but the island. One thing that took me by surprise, though, is how big Matthew is getting. Like, I thought forever he was going to be like Franklin Richards, the kid that never grew. But in here, he's almost like pre-teenage years, 12 years old, I think. Pretty interesting. And this artwork, oh my gosh, this reminds me a lot of like Tim Sale meets Darwin Cook. That type of art. It's just gorgeous. I love it. And I'm so glad to see it because I'm so used to this art that's been going on lately, especially in the X books, that, I call it the Stuart Eminem type of art style, but it's really a mix between Western and the Japanese anime, where it's taken like and made its own art, and it's just evolved from there. So you have people like Pepe Larraz and R.B. Silva that have a very similar style to that, Marcos Toe. And there's nothing wrong with that. I enjoy those stories, and I'm really cool with the fact that they're keeping all those people in the same type of title, so it looks like you're reading the same type of book. Whereas this really stood out. Maybe that's why I enjoy this more than anything. That is a pretty graphic cover, but you get the idea. There's a Rob Liefeld cover. This is how some of the covers are collected on the opposite page of the standard edition covers. But if you've not read this, I completely think you should check it out. You don't have to be a fan of KA-ZAR to read it, and all you have to have known is, well, they give you a little blurb right there as to what happened to him. This collects all 5 issues of that series, $15.99. I really wish this was ongoing because the ending leaves me wanting more. I want to know what's going to happen to him and his kids and his relationship with Shauna and Zabu. But anyway, $15.99, all 5 issues, 112 pages. You saw how the variants are collected, so there's nothing collected in the back. Look at that art. Loved it. This next book, it's called Secret Invasion, Meet the SKRULLS. Now, this might have been released because we have a Secret Invasion type of story happening on Disney+. I believe it comes out next year, and this is a good, interesting way to catch up on what the SKRULLS have been up to or how they've infiltrated Earth. Holy crap, how did I not read this before, though? Because the important part about this is the miniseries called Meet the SKRULLS. I'm having a hard time choosing what my favorite book of the week is. This was awesome. I had never read this. This is by Robbie Thompson. And the interesting thing about this is I had read the one-shot, The Road to Empire, Kree-Skrull War, where these characters appear. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's a family of Skrulls hanging out and pretending to be humans. I guess it would have been a cool story. I didn't know there was a story that came out. So this isn't collected in the Secret Invasion Omnibus. Not this miniseries, by the way. It's not collected in any other format except for a trade paperback that came out, I think, last year or the year before last. It was a 2019 series by Robbie Thompson and Nico Henriksson, who is just mind-blowing, beautiful artwork. He's the gentleman that did the Pride of Baghdad. He also worked on New X-Men. I love his dreamlike art, and it was interesting to see him do this, because to me, reading this, and I read this, I think right after I read the KA-ZAR book, and it felt like that type of art style, like almost like, not mimicking, I don't want to say, but really tapping into that Tim Cell type of art. So it feels a little bit different than the art style that I'm used to by Nico Henriksson. And I'm sure I'm butchering his name. So, long story short is you get your family right here. Gloria and Carl are raising 3 kids. Well, you know it's 3 kids. But one of them is missing. Where's the little one? Where's Ivy? So you have Madison and Alice sitting at the table. And it's a really cool introduction to this. It's like the parents are telling the girl, you know, we don't allow that at the table when she's coming to sit down with the cell phone. So you think they're talking about the cell phone, but what they're really talking about is not being a Skrull when sitting down at the table and getting ready to pray. So this is a family that came and infiltrated Earth. There is a mission that I don't want to spoil, but some of them have fallen in love with Earth, and a lot of them are having a hard time trying to adapt to that old lifestyle. Like I said, there's a secret mission, and there's a big secret with what happened to Ivy. And I'm not going to spoil that. There's a lot of wonderful action in here, beautiful artwork, and a lot of twists and turns that I didn't see coming. I really enjoyed this book. This one was awesome, and I cannot believe I missed it. And I hadn't heard about this. I haven't heard anybody really talk about this, or KA-ZAR for that matter. So, like I said, I have a hard time picking what my favorite book of the week was. This one took me by surprise. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything else that happens through these pages, but I am going to show some pages here of The Road to Empire, the Kree-Skrull War. I thought this did a phenomenal job of like teaching you the history of the 2 races, where the Kree came from, where the Skrulls came from, and why they were fighting. But, you know, we also had this family that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool that they have a family. I'd like to read more about them, and I did. So this also collects that one shot. This also collects the Fantastic Four, number 2 and number 18. So these classic stories that introduce the Skrulls for the first time and introduce the Super Skrull. It also collects Avengers 93, which is of course part of the Kree-Skrull War, right there with wonderful artwork by Neil Adams. You have a little bit of the New Avengers Illuminati number 1 in there, just pretty much the Skrull stuff, and then material from Fantastic Four 257, which is the that is John Byrne's era of the Fantastic Four. So, yeah, right there. You get some John Byrne, FF, and the Illuminati stuff by Jimmy Chung. All in all, this book was awesome, but completely worth the price was this right here. the Meet the SKRULLS, which isn't even on the cover. This really spoke to me. 264 pages, $24.99. Venom by Al Ewing and Ram V. Also by Brian Hitch, who supplies the artwork. Recursion. This is volume 1 of the new ongoing series. Melanie had to wrestle this one from me, and she got to read it first. Now, this one, I do have to talk a little bit about spoilers, so in case you haven't read Donny Cates' run, maybe put me on mute or skip this one, go into the description of the video and jump around. But this collects the 5-issue series, or I'm sorry, the ongoing series, the 5 first issues of the 2021 Venom series. So, for all you brave souls, or people that don't care, or people that have already read it, let's talk about Venom without going into too many spoilers, except the setup, which in the aftermath of Donny Cates' book of Venom, we now have a new host for the symbiote of Venom. And that is somebody close to home to Eddie, his own son, Dylan. And he has a different look to him, not just because Brian Hitch is drawing it, but he has chains. And, I think most people, when they saw that, I saw some comments like, oh man, just tries too hard to be edgy. When you read the story, it kind of makes sense. Now, where is Eddie Brock? What's going on with him? Is he dead? Is he still alive in the aftermath of the events of The King in Black? Well, you can find that out for yourself. This story really is about the relationship between the symbiote and his son, Dylan. Now, Sleeper's still around. This was a character that was introduced through the pages of the Venom by Donny Cates run. And, his dad left him rules. His dad said, do not merge with the symbiote, whatever you do. And, of course, Dylan doesn't listen. Now, we do have a new sort of villain right here, Meridius. And is it really a villain? But you also have the Return of the Life Foundation. So there are some aspects of some past stories that are back. But Brian Hitch's artwork is looking, how do I put this? A little bit less like his days on the Authority or the Ultimates. I'm used to Brian Hitch just having this almost widescreen movie type of art. Not that there's anything wrong with his artwork. It just seems like he's playing it pretty safe for this particular run. I love these covers here by John Boy-Meyer. He does variant covers for each of the issues. So there's a quick little flashback right there. And as far as the extras in the back, can't talk too much about it, but we do have new villains and some old villains return. Here are the variant covers. Some of them are in full splash pages. Some of them are in thumbnails. David Yardens' take on, of course, Spider-Man 300. What is Dazzler doing there? That's a Russell Dodderman. I'm sorry, it's not Dazzler, it's X-Gwen. And Paulo Siqueira. So, the first 5 issues, the book retails for $17.99. And it has 144 pages, and that is Venom by, I will say, Ram V. I didn't know about this. I thought it was just an Al Ewing book. Al Ewing wrote the 1st and 5th issue, and then Ram V co-wrote those, as well as writing issues 2 through 4. I really thought it was all Al Ewing, but I was wrong. So it is Al Ewing and Ram V. I'm not sure about Volume 2, if it's going to be the same, or if it's going to be just Al Ewing, or I'm sorry, just Ram V. Alright, all you spine watchers, here's what all the spines look like together this particular week. So, take a picture, pause, but don't forget to hit that like button. That's what I meant to say. Take a picture? Who takes a picture of this stuff? A couple weeks ago, I did a video called Where to Start Reading Moon Knight. And one of the books that I suggested there was Moon Knight by Jeff Lemire. And if you love that, if you enjoyed it, if you read that, if you listened to the video, or if you've already read that and want to know where to go immediately right after that, look no further than Moon Knight Legacy, the complete collection. Or really, Moon Knight by Max Bemis. So here we have a cover by Philip Tan, and this is Moon Knight Legacy, the complete collection. And then this back right here, the book retails for $39.99, and it has 312 pages. Collecting Moon Knight 188 to 200. Now, if you're wondering, wait a freaking minute, why is it 188 to 200? Well, Legacy also means they went back to the Legacy numbers. So here is your page with the credits. So you have Max Bemis, Jason Burrows, who blows me away with his art, Ty Templeton, and Guillermo Ortero, as well as Paul Davidson supplying the artwork. So this one starts off a little bit different than most of the Moon Knight stories I was going to recommend, or I recommended. Somebody actually brought this to my attention that I should have recommended this book, and it came really close. But the way it started, I was like, you know, I think we need to focus more on Moon Knight and less on a new villain. So we do have a new character here. We have this man that has lost his memories. He doesn't know who he is. He doesn't remember who he is. He thinks that he has ties to Egypt, so he's being interviewed by the psychiatrist right there that works for the Ravencroft Corporation. She works at that institute, and she's trying to figure out who he is. And she thinks she's got it figured out. She said, oh, wait, this could be the reincarnation of Khonshu. So could this really be Mark Spector? Could this really be one of his other identities, Jake Lockley, or could it be Stephen Grant? Or could it be Mr. Knight? Well, it's got a really interesting and freaking graphic turn. I really like that. So this book originally came out in 2017. So we have a new villain. He calls himself the Sun King. But we also have the return of older villains like Bushman. And there's a team up between the Sun King and Bushman trying to take out Mark Spector. There's also this other villain named The Truth, who's driving people to commit suicide through these pages. So Mark Spector has to, again, don the costume of Moon Knight. And by now, especially after reading Lemire's run, you have a better understanding as to how they take their time inside of the vessel known as Mark Spector, the original vessel and avatar of Khonshu. Because now you have Stephen Grant and Jake Lockley living in his head, and I like the way that it's handled. Now, one of the things I remember people talking about when this was coming out was how wordy it was, and I never got that. Maybe towards the very beginning, I really enjoyed Bemis. Bemis is the guy that he did the Centipede miniseries for the Dynamite Studios, and he also did the Best Worst X-Men. So I was used to his writing, and this was great. I really enjoyed this. Towards the end, I can see that the story changed. It's not as memorable to me as other runs, and I think that's why I left it out of the where to start reading Moon Knight. But I think it really shows how much he cared for the characters and understood the characters when you read like the battle within and the battle outside that's taking place between Moon Knight and all these psychotic killers. So one definitely not to be missed, especially the way that these Moon Knight books have been selling. Like, I think the Jeff Lemire book is already out of print. Bendis, I think, is just out of stock, but Lemire's is coming back into print. So, didn't want to sneak it under somebody's radar. The book collects 312 pages, $39.99. Let's look at the extras, because there are some extras. So here we have the variant covers, including the 200th variant cover that you've seen, I'm sure, if you have the omnibus right there, David Finch. Some art process right there by Jason Burrows. And thumbnail sketches right there. And Khonshu. All right, let's keep going. Next up is The Mighty Thor Epic Collection, Volume 1, God of Thunder. Now, this isn't a new book. It is a reprint. This is the original printing, and this is the new printing. Nothing really different on the cover. Let's look at these spines, because people have said the new printing sometimes have a different color spine. Nothing different there. And then the back of the book. Of course, the back of the book is going to be a little bit different. This was celebrating 75 years of Marvel. So this one here, the original printing was $34.99. The new printing is $44.99. I guess the original printing used different type of paper, and it's a little bit thicker than the new printing. So it looks a little bit shorter than the new printing. That's interesting. Never noticed that. But let's take a look at this together. All right, so you have the new printing here on the right and the original printing here on the left-hand side. Colors are just a little bit darker in the new printing. That's about the only difference I noticed as far as the colors and presentation. The paper quality, It's a little bit thinner, but also glossier than the paper quality that we're using back here. I think this one is about 10 years old or so. But this does collect the classic Thor stories from Journey into Mystery. So what you saw in the Mighty Marvel Masterworks, this collects issues 83 to 96 of that particular story, as well as the 97 through 104, the ANC story, and 105 to 109 when the title just became pretty much Thor. But here, let's take a closer look at this and talk about the stories found in here. So in here, you're going to see a lot of first appearances, of course. And you're going to see Stan Lee and Jack Kirby try to figure out exactly what type of book this is. Because when you're reading this, as you're reading this, you really don't know where they were going to go. It's like they were experimenting with stories and mashing up, you know, this Asgardian world with the human world. And I don't know, I thought it was really interesting to go back and read these. My kids enjoy this more than I did. I remember having just the hardest time reading these type of stories, even all the way to my 20s, because I don't know, I don't want to read Shakespearean superheroes, and that's usually how he wrote those particular stories with Thor. But I think later on you learn to appreciate things the older you get. Maybe it's just me. Here's how Loki is able to return by making this particular character cry right there. And, of course, this is Heimdall. Looks a little bit different these days. But, yeah, Loki returns. Because if somebody were to shed a tear for Loki, he would come back. That was the curse. And the more you turn the pages, the more you see how much of a bigger role Thor starts playing in these books. Because when I said that this collects issues 83 to 96, the A stories, those are just part of this anthology that Journey into Mystery was. And then you get the A and C stories from 97 to 104. I think those particular stories are where, to me, it got really good. Because most of the time you're reading about Thor, Donald Blake hanging out here on Earth and trying to rescue his love of his life, Jane Foster. And that's pretty much it. He tries to figure out a way to get his cane back and becomes Mjolnir. And that kind of, you know, it gets repetitive. But then they started doing these things called the Tales of Asgard. And it shows the world of Asgard as it was in its youth. Yeah, these stories back here. And I like that. That's the kind of stuff I enjoyed. You know, I mean, to me, Walter Simonson's run on Thor is the best run on Thor. But the stuff in the Tales of Asgard I thought were really cool because it introduces us the concept that Asgard's been such a big part of the Marvel Universe for so long in the past. It shows us old gods and how they used to deal with things. And it's just a small part of the Journey into Mystery. And it becomes an ongoing thing that I guess so many people enjoyed it that they decided to keep bringing it back more and more. And there's Zarko right there, the time traveler who makes his return. So in here, you're going to see the first appearance of Jane Foster. You're going to see the first appearance of Mr. Hyde, Cobra, Odin, Lady Sif, Loki, Executioner, Enchantress. All these classic characters that later on have been used, Heimdall, in the movies or in other comics. So, Radioactive Man, Balder the Brave. So those are the kind of stories you're going to see in here, and all the characters you're going to be introduced through these pages. Now, of course, they're a little bit different later on, although Odin's still pretty much the same. Odin's still kind of a prick, even through these pages. The book has 480 pages, and again, this particular copy here, the fight with Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, guest starring the X-Men, but not really, has 480 pages, and this particular copy printing retails for $44.99. There's some original art here in the back, so in case you missed it, now's your chance to get it. And hey, we saw that in the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. But this is the type of art you're going to be finding in here. Most of it, of course, supplied by Jack the King Kirby, Joe Sinnott, and Don Heck, also supplying some finishes. Larry Lieber doing some of the writing in here with Stan Lee. And then later on, you get some artwork here by Al Hartley and Robert Bernstein doing some of the writing. All right. Moving on to Conan, the Barbarian Epic Collection, the original Marvel years of Once and Future Kings. That is a mouthful. Now, this book originally came out last week, but because it was the only trade paperback, thought, well, let's just wait until this week, mainly so I can catch up on reading other things. I got so many omnis coming out in the next week or so. This is Volume 5 of Conan the Barbarian, and this collects issues of the original Marvel years, Conan the Barbarian, 60 through 71, and annuals 2 and 3, as well as the Power Records 31. So, the one thing I will say here is the cover, at least here, I don't know if you could tell, this one stood out to me a little bit. Sometimes they do this. Doesn't look like it was cut, at least this copy right here, enough to cover the paper underneath. So, it's like a little shorter cut than it needed to be. That's the one thing I noticed about this. But this is printed at the Salisco printers. So it's the same paper quality that we've seen recently with Epic Collections. And it kicks off with this wonderful artwork by Big John Buscema. So by now you have Baylit and Conan just hanging out. They're hanging out a lot. In this, though, there's some really interesting things that happen. You have the crossover with Red Sonja. However, the Red Sonja issues are not collected in here. So it's Conan, Red Sonja, Baylit, and also you throw in King Cole. Oh yeah, you have this guy right here, King of the Lions, I think, or Lord of the Lions. Yeah, Lord of the Lions, Amra. That guy didn't last long. But after this, you have this crossover. And the way the crossover is handled is, let me get there. So you have the issues of Conan, and you have the issue of Red Sonja that leads into the big crossover. Yeah, so Marvel feature number 6 featuring Red Sonja is not collected in here, and neither is Marvel feature number 7. Now, number 6, it's a lead into this particular issue, so you don't really need it. But this right here is where the story continues, and they give you a recap as to what happened in that, and then you get to finish the story out here with Conan issue 68, which is the cover to this book right here. So this is the fight with King Cole, another Robert E. Howard collection, or creation, not collection. It is in collection. It's in 3 omnis. It's the only way to own it right now, unless you have the, I believe they did come out in Dark Horse in trade paperback format. But that's the fight with Cole. So it's awesome to see these characters have a big fight. Now, they do meet later on again, but that's not for a while. But yes, this is mainly Big John and Roy Thomas still kicking ass writing Conan stories. And I've done overviews of the trade paper, the trade paperbacks. This is the trade version of the omnibus collections. You have artwork here by Ernie Chan finishing out Big John Buscema's art. There's so much talent, not just in the pencils of Big John, but also the inks. So much talent's going into the inking. It could change the way that the artist looks, even within the same issue, if it's somebody else inking the stuff. So you also have, speaking of inks, Neil Adams inking this particular book right here. This is the book and record set. This is John Buscema with Neil Adams on inks. How awesome is that? It's crazy. Then you have some extras in the back here. The book has 360 pages and retails for $44.99. And let's look at some of this. The Conan checklist, the Marvel value stamp, house ads. I think this is from the calendar. This is Gil Kane. Gil Kane supplied a lot of the covers in this particular collection. Forgotten Tales of Conan back here. Some original artwork. Oh, that is awesome. This is John Romita. It's a sketch by him. Big John art right there. And you have some inks by Tim Conrad. Classic meetup right there. And the layout by Big John Buscema of Red Sonja and Conan. And this is from the Marvel Comics Index number 2. And where else you can find Conan in epic format. I think volumes 1 and 2 are out of print right now. And wrapping up the books for this week is Thor. The latest Thor, Volume 8, War of the Gods. So from 1975 to 1977, Thor 242 to 259 are collected in here, as well as the 5th annual, which is, to me, well worth this book right here. And then the Marvel Spotlight number 30, which is the Warriors 3 story. So Len Wein, David Anthony Crafts, Dave Englehart, John Buscema, Pablo Marcos, and Tony DeZuniga. Oh, man. So if you grew up reading Conan, or if you've been enjoying Conan, especially with the inks of Tony DeZuniga on John Buscema, then this is the... Need I say more why you need to get this book. So Len Wein really brings these characters back home. And when I mean home, I mean Midgard. I mean, these characters are hanging out here on Earth, and it becomes one monster of the week after another. Zarko makes his return from the future, but there's a team up here between him and Thor. They have to fight against these, what are they called? The Time Twisters, I think. The big alien creatures that show up through these pages. And, yeah, these characters right here. And then we see Conan... I almost said Conan. I just got finished talking about Conan. And also John Buscema draws Conan. Very similar to the way that he does Asgard here. But anyway, you see Thor and friends just go through time. And Jane Foster becomes a big part of this. No longer is she the damsel in distress, but she kind of becomes this big badass warrior. So, for example, here, Thor says, hey, I know that Fire Lord guy. He's teaming up with those terrorists. So Jane Foster's like, you Warrior 3 stay here. Me and Thor are going to go to Costa Verde to take care of Fire Lord. Like, that's how much he takes charge. And it's interesting to see that character different than the pages of the very first volume. So we have some Joe Sinnott here finishing out Big John Buscema's inks. Thor does become bad for a little bit, but you can find out why exactly. Let's keep going. This is the Warrior 3 story from the Marvel Spotlight number 30. And then back to Thor. Now, about, I want to say a third of the book, or a third into the book, we do go back to Asgard. And something changes here. We step away from Jane Foster to focus on the return of Lady Sif. Now, this was an interesting... But by the way, I haven't read a lot of the stories in here. I've read the annual before. I've read the Spotlight because I used to have that Warrior 3 trade paperback, or maybe it was a Marvel Premiere hardcover. But I haven't read the majority of the stories in here. So I didn't know the whole twist with the return of Sif and how it happened. Or how I felt about it, because, wait, I was just enjoying that aspect of Thor. And now you're taking it away to bring me Lady Sif? I guess that's cool. I don't know. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments what you thought of that little twist. But yeah, a lot of this stuff was new to me. And speaking of new, holy crap, we have so much Thor. We have Epic Collections 1 through 8 of Thor. We're missing just about 4 or 5 more epics to finish out Thor. And that's just crazy to me. How much more Thor we need to wrap it up. Like, it's gotten to be, you know, since the series first started, since the first Epic Collection, Thor was one of the earliest books to come out. Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America, and Spider-Man. It's just nuts that we're about a couple of more years to finish out Thor. How grand is that going to be for you to look at your bookshelf and have all these Epic Collections? If they keep reprinting them, of course. Speaking of reprint, don't forget to vote for our most wanted Marvel Epic Collection reprint. Instructions are in the video released yesterday. But how cool is it going to be to just have these books on your shelf? All lining up. All blue with the blue, like the same spine designs. I'll be as proud as the Marvel Masterworks guys, because I know how proud those guys are. That's going to look beautiful on your shelf. Yeah, we don't have like the Walter Simonson stuff. I think we're missing volumes 10, 11. But let's keep going through here. We don't have this particular issue collected in here. This is issue 254, but all it is just a reprint of issue 159 of Thor, which is the origin of Thor that changed everything. No longer was he Donald Blake, but actually the son of Odin that was exiled to Earth. And you can find out about it by reading those original stories. I'm surprised they didn't do that. I know, like, in Creepy Magazine and Eerie Magazine, whenever there was a reprint, they would usually reprint it, and it used to get on my nerves, because I was like, I already have that. I just want the cover. I wish they would have done it this way. Now, this book is $39.99. It is 392 pages. So it's a little smaller than the other books, but these books have already been mapped out. There's the controller right, or the recorder right there. But let's get to this particular annual, The Return of the Grey Gargoyle. team up with the Grey Gargoyle right here. To me, this was completely worth it. This is the book I did read because I used to have. So this is annual number 5. Of course, we have the fight between Thor and Hercules again. But this time around is a retelling. It's Steve Englehart telling the dawn of the gods, telling stories of Asgard and how it came to be. An artwork by Big John Buscema with inks by Tony DeZuniga. Oh, forget about it, man. Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. Those two together on Conan were some of my favorite. As a kid, I loved this art, and because I just wanted to see what two superheroes were fighting, and I think I found it like in the quarter bin at Dr. Comics at the flea market. I'm skipping some pages here just so you can sample what it looks like. But this to me is worth it. The entire book for those people that want to stop getting Conan during the Len Wein era. I happen to enjoy this. And a lot of the stories that I've read through here, the return of some of the characters, I mean, there are things, of course, that we've seen before in the pages of Thor, but I think are handled a lot different. Like I said, the Sif return really surprised me, especially how it was done. And just to see all these badass warriors teaming up, even with villains, there's a lot of twists and turns. I enjoyed it. Let's look in the back here for extras. I know I don't usually review books, but I wanted to give my 2 cents about it, because I hadn't read some of that stuff before. Some original artwork in here, and 392 pages, $39.99. That, as they say, is that. If you are interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which one you're most excited to pick up. If you missed out on the very first Thor God of Thunder Epic Collection, if you're picking up all the Epic Collections, if this is the way you're collecting Conan, what you thought of Moon Knight, and if you read these miniseries I was talking about, the Secret Invasion and the KA-ZAR book. And look out on the channel for the return of the family reviews of the Mighty Marvel Masterworks. I believe we're going to be doing Daredevil next. That's what the Astonishing Melanie chose. This was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Smash that like button on the way out. Ring that bell for notifications. Don't forget to share the video. And also check out our Patreon and Spreadshop. Great ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, all of you stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.